Hello and welcome to Roll for Topic, a roundtable discussion about topics related to running role-playing games. I'm Chris Salzman.
And I'm Andy Rao.
Oh, Andy, I think we were just complaining to each other before this call, but I'm actually excited to put aside the complaining and and talk about some tabletop gaming stuff that's been going on in our lives. Yes, this is always kind of a bright spot in my life recording these with you. So I just wanted to say that publicly that I appreciate that you still do this with me after all these years.
Well,
Yeah.
the feeling is mutual. I will say, a couple days ago, you asked me for the names of the players in my most recent
Yes.
gaming campaign.
Yeah. Uh,
I was pretty nervous when I asked my wife if she would marry me or not, but
yeah.
I'm more nervous right now about what is going to happen in this
Yeah.
podcast
Well, I
episode.
mean, it's nothing major. Yeah. So what I wanted to talk about with you today is, so you had alluded to this on the podcast that you recently did this big gaming weekend where you went off to a cabin deep in the snowy woods of West Michigan off the coast of Lake Michigan to play a multi-day campaign that you'd always wanted to play. So yeah, when I said that I was asking about your players, what I wanted to do is, so I just asked them if they had any sort of like questions about about what happened up there,
Uh-oh.
and we'll get into that later.
Okay.
There's some foreshadowing. It's almost all of them said it was fantastic. You know, they loved it. Well, no,
Okay.
actually, all of them said that. I don't want to say
My
almost.
mind
Yeah,
went to
yeah,
the word
you just
almost in that
really hung on
statement.
to almost.
Yeah.
No, yeah, they all said they loved it, right? And I've heard from them too. Yeah, it's true. It went well, so I think you can
Okay.
rest easy there. Yeah, and I also wanted to know before we get too far into this. So like you've started writing some newsletter style updates on a Substack recently, which I think we've talked about on the podcast. But I wanted to mention
Yeah.
that too, that you did a little bit of a recap of that gaming weekend. On Fortress of Regrets, which you can find at andyrao.substack.com if you want.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I really enjoyed reading about that. So I want to get into the game proper, but I think before I wanted to do that, I wanted to ask you about like this notion that you'd said about like why in that substack, and then also just kind of talking with you, like why is doing something like going off to a cabin in the woods to to play some games, like why is that important? I guess like what did you get out of that, like socially or emotionally, before we get into the actual like nitty gritty parts of the game.
Yeah. So that's a good question. And it really is something that came out of our hosting of the RFTCon
Mm-hmm.
mini conference over the last 5 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just the realization that I think there's value in making an event out of something,
Mm-hmm.
even if you could do the thing without making it an event,
Yeah. Yeah.
if that makes sense.
It does.
Like,
Yes.
so in this case, so I wanted to run a Call of Cthulhu campaign that was like Antarctic themed
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. There's like a lot of ways I could do that normally, like I could meet with some local players and do that. I could pitch an online game to do that. But it just seemed like there's some added value in saying, let's not just like do this online over the next couple of weeks or months. Let's not
Mm-hmm.
just meet in person to do this over the next few months. Let's like just declare that we're doing this as like a quote big deal and
Mm-hmm.
meet and do it. And like I don't know what the psychological explanation for that is, but it is just more satisfying on some level, I think, especially as I get older, right? And like
Mm-hmm.
I have less opportunities to do this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's just like a certain satisfaction in like, yeah, in 2026, we met and we did this thing and it was like a big deal
Yeah.
and we did it and it's done and we can all look back on it and kind of reflect on it. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, there's a book that I've read before called this is we're getting like very off topic from tabletop games, but there's a book that I like called Die with a Zero. And the general idea behind it is, right, like you should not just like amass a bunch of wealth and then die with a lot of money, right? Like you should really be thinking like how can I like build in these experiences into my life such that like I have these memories, right? Like I think it calls it like memory dividends or something like that, right? So like
Yeah.
you're on your deathbed and you're thinking back, and like you probably will think back to gaming memories and stuff. this
Yeah.
might be one of them, right? Of like, oh, like that was really great, right? You probably strengthen some friendships and those sorts of things too. But yeah, like it absolutely makes sense. I mean, I think there's a lot of merit to that, and it is the sort of thing that like this does feel a little bit like old men having having a conversation about the life life that they've lived. But yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
there's a lot to be said about that. Hey, make it an event, make it a big thing, like take it seriously on some level. Like you can have a lot of
Yes.
fun, but it's like the taking it seriously and really setting aside some time, yeah, to make it
Well,
something
that's
special.
a big part of it. The take of it seriously part is a big part of it because
Hmm.
one of the things I struggle with my life as an adult person who likes to run role playing games is the challenge of like finding people to play with who take it seriously.
Hmm.
And in this case, like there was a pretty high ask for this weekend to like go play Cthulhu.
Hmm.
Most of the people were like out of town, and so it was like a 3-hour drive, and the
Hmm.
weather was terrible. So it
Yes,
was
you
like
picked like the worst weekend.
maybe like a
Yeah,
4-hour drive, right?
yeah, yeah.
And so I do think that when you choose to make a commitment to something, you set aside like whatever a lot of that buffer of whatever the buffer is, snark or just removal that you have between you and the dorky hobby activities you do.
Hmm.
Like when you're asked to make a commitment like that, it sort of forces you to ask if this is an experience I want to have. And if the
Mm.
answer is yes, I think that's like a meaningful thing we should like capture that and we should sort of commemorate that. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Yeah, I think when you say commemorate, you're not exactly talking about like, oh, we got to make T-shirts, right? It's more, it's
Yeah,
more like, yeah, commemorated
for
it,
sure.
yeah, and that like, yeah, setting aside some time. Yeah, okay, so we don't have to belabor that too much, but I do want to kind of have a little bit of that conversation because I think that is important, and like that is honestly one of the reasons why we love, I think, doing the con
Yeah.
so much is because it is just this. It feels different, even though like oftentimes I'll end up playing games with people that I play games with all the time, right? Like
Yes.
there is something that feels really fun and important about like, oh, we all like cleared our schedule like to come here, yeah, and do this
Yes.
thing, right?
You
Yeah.
know, like if you want to play your friend's Star Trek hack of Blades in the Dark, you
Yes.
can you could do that at any time.
Yeah.
But saying that you're gonna do it on a specific date in a specific place,
Hmm.
it adds something to the experience. I think that is genuinely, as a human thing,
Hmm.
worthwhile.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you don't have friends that are making hacks of Blades of the Dark in the Star Trek universe, I would suggest you get some cooler friends. Yeah. Right? Like,
That's right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So why don't you tell me a little bit about like, okay, so you got this, this cabin sort of out there. Yeah, tell me a little bit about like the campaign itself, right? So like this is a well-regarded campaign, I think, like from what you've told me and what I've read about it. You had to truncate it a little bit, of course, to kind of
Yeah.
fit it into the weekend. But yeah, I guess like how did that go? How'd that go running it over the course of a few days?
Yeah. All right. A little quick background. So this is actually a fairly newly published campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Although the idea of doing something like this goes back decades.
Mm-hmm.
But this is just for records and for listeners who might want to check this out. The campaign I ran was Terra Antarctica,
Mm-hmm.
which is a recently published box set, like it's a deluxe box set campaign for the Arkham Horror role playing game.
Mm-hmm.
And, I would say it could be adapted to any sort of Call of Cthulhu esque sort of game that you have in mind. But
Mm-hmm.
I had my eye on this campaign because for a very long time, I've had this sort of dream of running an Antarctic Call of Cthulhu game.
Mm-hmm.
There's a famous campaign published in the 1990s for Call of Cthulhu called Beyond the Mountains of Madness.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would ever really be able to run that campaign as written, but like the themes of it, like that art Antarctic isolation and everything you can do with that are so powerful and they're things I would just really enjoy evoking in a role-playing situation.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted to do that, and it just seemed like designating a weekend to do this would maybe give us a chance to like exploit those themes in a way that you couldn't if you were meeting like once a month in my dining room right?
Yes. Yeah.
And snacking on like carrots and hummus, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I came to it with. But the challenge was, this is a kind of funny thing. Chris, you might appreciate that. Have you noticed that role playing games have started like boasting about the number of hours of gameplay you get out of them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
It it's like a weird thing. I think it has been ported over from the video game
Yes.
world.
Video games love to do this. And to me, it's often like the bigger that number is, the less I want to play that game.
Exactly. So this campaign, if you go to the publisher page, it's like 50 plus hours of like gameplay. So I bought this campaign, I read through it. And yeah, it is like you could take a year and play through this and you would have a good experience. I had to do it in like so you're looking at a weekend. That's really like 2 days of gaming,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you actually crunch the numbers, we're looking at like maybe 16 hours of like playing at the table,
You're like through
right?
the tutorial if it's a video game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, how do you take something that is like 50 plus hours? And in reality, we're honestly looking at like 100 hours. How do you tell that story in a meaningful way? So, that was my challenge as a GM.
Hmm.
I've got this like big campaign. I'm too stupid to like look for a campaign for like an adventure that could be just regularly played in 16
Oh
hours.
yeah.
Instead, I've got
Yeah.
to start with this one that's like
Yeah. Yeah.
50 plus hours.
Yeah.
So the challenge as a GM was I've got this weekend. It's like a completely constrained time limit. If we get to the time limit where everyone has to drive home and we haven't finished the campaign, that's like a huge fail, right?
Yes.
So no
Yeah.
matter what happens, I have to get us to an end point at the end of 12 or 16 hours of playing.
Hmm.
I spent the weeks leading up to this obsessively reading through this campaign,
Hmm.
mapping out all of the pieces, chopping everything I possibly could, and trying to evaluate like what is the really important stuff that would make the gaming experience good that I have to keep. Like and
Hmm.
what can I drop? And so there is lots of stuff that I was able to cut. And then I ran it for the weekend, my incredibly condensed version of this Antarctic exploration. And there's stuff that like worked, there's stuff that didn't work. I hope the players had fun. I think they had fun,
They
but
did.
like
Yeah.
it was like a weird weekend. I felt like I stretched myself. And like even if you told me the players didn't really have much fun, I would still consider this something that I'm glad I did
Hmm.
for like the exercise of putting myself out there a little bit and trying
Hmm.
to do something that was maybe kind of stupid to try.
Yeah. Do you I'll ask one question, then I've got some other follow questions. Do you ever want to do this again?
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, one of my post-mortem observations was that I don't think this was like a very good idea to have tried, right? Like the compromises I had to make in cutting down this campaign to fit into one weekend
Hmm.
were pretty painful.
Hmm.
Just to be clear, I enjoyed the weekend. I actually loved the weekend.
Yeah.
It's like something I will treasure the memory of it.
Yeah.
That said, I don't know if I would tell anyone else to do this with this
Hmm.
campaign. Like,
Gotcha. Yeah.
I took this campaign, I hacked and manhandled it into this form, but like, I don't think the form I hacked it into is really like does it a lot of justice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun. Like, just to be clear,
Mhm.
I had a lot of fun. I love this weekend. If you were like, hey, Andy, I'm thinking of running Terra Antarctica, I would say,
Don't
great. You
don't.
should run this for the next 10 months with your gaming table. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Maybe do the last few sessions as like a gaming weekend instead.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Does this campaign have like sort of like a big boss at the end of it, or something that you could kind of shoot for, that you could insert pretty easily? Or did you have to, like, I guess when you're thinking about hacking up a campaign of this size, right? And I guess I'll even take a step back. So like if I've run some like D&D adventures where it's like, oh, like I just don't want to do this whole chapter, right? And so it's like it's easy to sort of
Yeah.
like cut stuff out like that. When you're cutting stuff, was it easy to do that, being like, oh, like we can just sort of like, I can just give them this piece of information, we can jump ahead really fast? Or yeah, like I said, like was there kind of a big boss you could drop in to have that be kind of the culmination of the adventure? Like how did you think about like, yeah, cutting the campaign up?
So great question. And this is the exact same question you have to ask if you're running a one shot at like a convention
Hmm.
or like you're doing a Halloween night one shot. You have to be able to fast forward to the finale, right?
Hmm.
In some way. So if you have only 2 hours to run a one shot on Halloween night, you have to have planned your adventure such that like you do not want those people to go home and you didn't make it to like the end, right?
Hmm.
So whatever the story is, whatever the plot is, you have to be able to like fast forward to the thing at the end. So in this adventure, yes, there is a final scene that they have to do, or else you would feel really incomplete, like I would say. So the
Hmm.
goal of this is you're going to Antarctica and you've got to seal off the way that these Lovecraftian menaces are leaking into the real world.
Mm, okay.
And so in this campaign, that's a big set piece encounter where you're like far underground and you are like planting explosives, to like literally seal off this tunnel that the
Yeah.
monsters are using to get into the world, right?
Yeah.
I wish I could say I planned this out as a GM, but the reality was the final session we played, like the last 4 or so hours of the weekend, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get to the end point. I
Yes.
truly don't know. I was saved by the players, right? Because your players are part of this too,
Yes,
right?
they are.
They're not like your victims, they're not your audience.
Hmm.
They are participants in this. And every player there was like, well, we've only got like 4 more hours of game time. I don't know how much they were metagaming that and thinking like we need to move this along and let Andy bring us to the end point. I don't know how, maybe they weren't thinking that far ahead at all and they were just role playing how they wanted.
Hmm.
But the way it worked out is the players made the choice to kind of accelerate us to the end point.
Hmm.
And I all credit to the players for doing that. I think there's like in-game justifications for doing that, right?
Hmm.
You've got to seal away the monsters. That's your highest priority. You can't be distracted by other stuff. And so we're just going to beeline towards the end. I don't know how much of that was the players going, we could stop and explore this whole ancient city, but because of the time limit, we need to get to the end point. And that's obviously
Hmm.
in this place the GM
Yeah.
wants us to
Yeah.
go. I suspect it was a combination of both of those things, but both of those things I think are part of go into the skill set of being a great player of a role playing game. And so they helped me out and they saved my bacon basically by not doing anything where I ever had to say, you know what, we need to like skip this stuff you're doing and fast forward to the end. Instead, the players were like, we care enough about this. We need to get to the end. So let's just do it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think it's a hugely good point. Yeah, to always remember is like, yeah, the players are on your side in
yes.
telling the story. Yeah. So this brings up sort of the question that I got from one of your players was about like it sounded like you had some NPCs that you put under player control in the
Yes.
game. Okay, so yeah, what was the setup there? Did they like each have sort of a companion that they were running?
Yes, so this was a challenge of the campaign, and this requires me to like fill you in a little bit on the
Hmm.
backstory as a GM. So the plot of the campaign is you're an Antarctic expedition. You do not send a player group of 4 PCs to Antarctica,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You send a group of like 150 people to
Oh,
Antarctica, right?
interesting. Yes.
If you're exploring Antarctica, like no one is going off in a group of 4 by themselves.
Hmm.
Like, right? That would be insane. You always have a party of like 15 people with you.
Gotcha.
So this is a GM challenge, and I don't think I really cracked the code here. So if like there's
Hmm.
listeners that have done this, you have a situation where the PCs are supposed to be the stars of the show, but they are accompanied by like a dozen other people that like in the real world would have to accompany you on
Yeah.
this expedition, right?
Yeah.
Like whatever the PCs are doing, there have to be in you're in Antarctica. There's got to be like a person who can fly the planes. There's got to be a
Hmm.
person that can fix the planes. It's got to be a person that can manage the dog sleds. It's
Yeah.
got to be a person that manages the food supply, et
Yeah.
cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera.
Yeah.
So I tried to address this. So I unrealistically chopped down the number of people that would be out on the ice.
Hmm.
And the way I tried to manage it as a game master was to give every player character an NPC companion that
Interesting.
they were kind of responsible for running like a side character. So I handed there's a little card that had their stats on it. I gave everybody the card of the person they were kind of attached to.
Hmm.
If we had been playing this for like a year in your monthly basement game, the players would have had time to develop relationships with these NPCs and stuff like that. However, like for when you do it in one weekend, I mean, just as a GM, the challenge is like I cannot role play like 8 separate NPCs, right?
You don't have that many accents ready to go.
I don't have that many Mario-based accents that I can pull out at any time.
Yeah.
And so my choice, and maybe this is a mistake, like I learn as I do this, right?
Hmm.
I hoped that by giving everybody like an NPC that was kind of theirs to control, that would create the sort of connection that otherwise I would have had to build over 6 months of like role playing that person's character.
That's a smart, yeah, it's a smart idea. Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, maybe it was smart. I don't
Maybe
know. Like,
it's on paper, it seems like a really good idea. Did
yeah.
you so were they able to, like, I don't know, like, mechanically operate that NPC sort of as another player character, or was it really more of just a role playing, like, oh, and also, I don't know, whatever. Yeah, you have a pilot that's controlled by, player B.
So it ended up being almost entirely a mechanical thing.
Gotcha.
If I were a better or more ambitious game master, I would have tried to role play these people's like unique personalities.
Mhm.
I just didn't have the mental bandwidth as game
Yeah.
master to do that. And so what it amounted to, and I don't know if this is good or if it was bad. I think there's elements of both. Is basically every player character had like a second person with a second character sheet
Yeah.
that could do stuff, and they
Yes.
could kind of dictate what that person did. Here's a weird quirk of like the game system that the sort of thing you only learn by actually playing through something and not reading it. Like, so all of these NPCs were like massively overpowered compared to the PCs. Like,
Yes.
so
Yeah, yeah.
so it was kind of funny. It created some comical situations where like, okay, here's your PC and here's your like Superman level like NPC that you're also controlling. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Is that just a like, because I don't know, whatever, the pilot NPC is like, just has all their points dumped into flying.
I
Yeah,
don't. So I don't
yeah,
know that. I think this
yeah.
goes to the matter of like the people that designed this and play tested it and stuff.
Mhm.
I think it probably was like, we can't trust the PCs to have skill points and all the stuff that's needed to survive this
Mm.
campaign.
Mhm.
So we're going to make these like uber NPCs.
Yeah, yeah.
like I wish I had clocked onto this earlier. I would have either buffed the player characters or nerfed the NPCs. But I
Yes.
mean, but
It's
I
like,
mean,
yeah,
yeah.
feel like this happens in video games all the time, where like there'll be some sort of NPC or like some sort of villain that you're fighting against, and then they'll join your party, and like all their stats get immediately reduced. It's like, yeah, it's like,
Yes,
well,
exactly.
okay. I mean, they were really awesome, but now,
Yes, this person was like literally a god who is going
yes,
to conquer the world, but
yeah.
now they are using a +1 sword.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah. Which I mean, it makes sense. But okay, all right. So the question that I got from one of your players then was, so like with these NPCs, um, yeah, they mentioned that at least one of the NPCs sort of went evil on you at one point.
yeah.
Yeah, and they were just sort of wondering like if you had any qualms with that, or if that was a surprise.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So the plot of this, and I guess I should throw out a vague spoiler warning.
Hmm.
Like this, I'm going to be pretty vague here, but
I think that's fine at this point, right? Like if you were running this or you're going to play in this campaign, I mean, I don't think you're going to be playing the same version that you that you ran.
no,
So
there's
yeah,
no possible way you'll be
yeah,
playing this like
yeah,
version I did. Any sort of Lovecraftian adventure in the Antarctic is, of course, going to draw from John Carpenter's The Thing.
yes,
And so a part of the plot of the published adventure is that some of the NPCs get turned evil. They get killed and body snatched by like the like Lovecraftian entities and
hmm,
become shape-shifting monsters, right?
yes, yeah,
if you're playing this in like over the course of a year, you build up this trust with NPCs, and then you really relish the betrayal that comes from this person
Yes.
being co-opted by the monster.
Hmm.
In the moment in this weekend game, what so it was very funny. For effect, I really need to have a couple of these NPCs go off by themselves so they can get killed and
Yes.
turned
Of
by the
course.
monsters.
Of course. Yes.
And I truly don't know if like the players were like onto this or if this was just a coincidence, but they were like, let's send these two NPCs off by themselves to go fix the plane. So like, and like players, if you're listening, if this was like a meta thing, like I salute you. If it was like not intentional, like that's just very funny.
Yes.
So those NPCs, of course, they're off fixing the plane while the PCs have adventures. So I
Mhm.
have them get killed and turned by the monsters. So they reappear, and then these NPCs, at a certain point, they reveal themselves and they attack. And there's a big fight scene, and the players have to kill them because they're horrible doppelgangers.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like it worked out pretty well. It did not have like the sting of personal betrayal and paranoia that is clearly what you're supposed to do with this.
Hmm.
And so that's like a little bit of a bummer because what happened is that like someone's secondary character sheet turned into a monster. Like,
Okay.
right? They didn't feel the sting of like, I built a relationship with that person over 6 months
Hmm.
and now they've been taken over by a monster and I have to kill them. There
Hmm.
wasn't any of that pathos, but
Yeah.
that is the sort of like sacrifice you have to make to squeeze a big campaign into one weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. You just, I don't think you can manufacture that. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, it's just, that is the sort of thing that you have to have the players sort of get used to over a long period of time, like get used to the idea that, oh, like this NPC is always going to be there, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, we sent them off to go do this very important thing, and we came back and like, because of our own stupidity or our need to move the plot forward or something, right? Like they have now been turned, and now we've got to deal with like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a normal role-playing campaign, if you're running D&D for your friends or whatever, I mean, the way this works is like is you don't plan it in advance exactly, but you react on the fly. You see that like, okay, players have like gotten really invested in this NPC. They really care about them and stuff like that.
Hmm.
It's going to be so juicy when this one turns out to be a doppelganger, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
I can't do that. It was still a fun fight,
Hmm.
but like it lacked the maybe emotional punch that you
Yeah.
would get if you were doing this the correct way.
Yeah. So I ran a game a couple years ago at RFT Con where it was a level 20 one shot, like a D&D level 20 one shot, right? And like
By the way, I just can't believe you did that, by the way.
oh
Like,
the
that's like, I can't even wrap my head around that, but that's
uh
amazing.
it there were parts of it that worked really well, but parts that didn't. But like the whole idea behind it was that the players had run across like a box of like in an attic somewhere of someone else's campaign. So I actually like went and got like a box and threw a bunch of like random gaming stuff in it,
Amazing.
along with like the notes for this campaign that like got to the final boss of this big campaign, but then for whatever reason it kind of fell apart, right? So like they had all these notes along the lines of like, notes like kind of telling them like, oh, this person is really important, right? Because like these other players that you've never met before, right, like thought that
Yeah.
this person was important, right? Like, so I tried to do some of that, like manufacturing some of that, I don't know, those emotional connections, and it worked sort of well. But I mean, you can definitely see sort of like where it breaks down. It's like, yeah, it
Yeah.
worked well enough for them to like, I don't know, make some decisions along those lines, but really it's just sort of like, that's got to be an emotional beat that comes from player investment over time.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
There is no substitute for time. So this campaign, as well as the Beyond the Mountains of Madness campaign from the 90s that I kind of idolize and put on a pedestal. These are slow burn campaigns. Like
Hmm.
the if you're running them correctly, they very intentionally take forever to get to the part where the monsters jump out
Yeah.
because that's the part they want you to spend all that time just pure role playing
Hmm.
in a seemingly low stakes environment. You get to know people, you get to trust them. Then at the very end, right, you abruptly turn the volume up to 11
Hmm.
and it gets crazy, and then you can leverage all of the emotional investment the players have put into these NPCs.
it's hard. I don't know. It's hard because you and I have done other kind of gaming weekend things in the past, right? And like I often come away from those being like that was super fun and also not how I want to game all the time, right? Like it's not like I'm
Yes.
like oh that was great. Let's do it again next weekend, right? It's like
Yep.
oh like
Mhm.
let's do that in a year and we'll have a lot of fun because we'll have kind of recovered or whatever from it. But yeah. Anyway, so like I've also done the thing of sort of like for the wrap up of a campaign, right? Like you do something different for that, right? Like
Hmm.
so I
Yep.
ran this like lunch game, for years. And the way that we ended up wrapping that up, well, for various reasons, but like we wrapped it up by doing like longer sessions, right? So we'd gotten really used to this cadence of just kind of playing at like, 45 minutes to an hour every time. And then the last few sessions were like longer 3 hour sessions or whatever,
Mhm.
right? Like that. And it felt different, right? Like, so you still did have that, like that build up of like, yeah, you kind of like know these characters and stuff. But then when you're getting together, it feels different, more important and things like that. So like, yeah, it's like I am taken with the idea of finishing a campaign like that over the course of like a long gaming weekend. But I mean, getting that timing down, right, would be pretty tricky too. Of like, yeah, like how do you know you're gonna be able to wrap it up? I guess you tell the players like, hey, we've been playing this game for 20 weeks or whatever for the past
Yeah.
year, and like now we're gonna get together in the cabin and we're gonna like, yeah, do the final, go down to the cave and blow everything up.
Yeah.
Like that, yeah, like, and that seems like maybe a way to approach it where the the weekend part of it makes it work a little bit better. But it's
Mhm.
also like, I don't know, not that like you need to optimize these sorts of things too much. But yeah, I am wondering if that
Yeah.
if that would have worked maybe better if you wanted like some different emotional payoffs.
I feel like I'm sounding pretty negative about the weekend, and I do just wanna clarify, this was, like, really worth doing.
Hmm.
Like, it was a source of joy to me. It was so worth doing. So, like, when I say how it should have been done differently, I'm really talking about, like, how could I take the stuff that worked and make it land
Yes.
even harder, you know?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good thing to call out, probably, especially just as we wrap up here. Like, yeah, I think that's always sort of what we're after here on this podcast in general. It's not like a dissecting things and you're like, oh man, like this was really bad. It's always like, yeah, like how can we do that but more, right? Like how can we make that experience a little bit better or a little bit different, or like how do we communicate it in a way that it's like, oh, like you should go try this with your group.
I truly believe you do need to, like, carve out space to do things that go a little against the grain of your personality
Hmm.
or your ingrained habits.
Yeah.
This is like the sort of modest thing you can do to, like, just put a little pin in these social experiences of your life
Hmm.
that, like, you wouldn't be able to place if you were just having people over for your weekly game of, like, Settlers of Catan or something, right?
Yes. Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard someone describe this sort of thing as like when you're thinking about making a decision or trying something, like you can think about it in terms of like, is this like a new haircut or a new tattoo? Right.
hmm,
And like this is very much like a new haircut sort of thing where it's like, hey, if it doesn't go well, it's one weekend out of 1 year. Like if it
yep,
goes well, like that is, maybe you got a new look, right? Like a new look that you
yeah,
love. Yeah.
exactly.
All right. Well, that does it for us. Yeah. Thanks, Andy, for going through that. I'm happy that it went well, and I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it. But yeah, so that does it for us. You can always go check out Andy on a different podcast if you want to, where he talks about zombie movies with John Corey called
That's
Zombie
right.
Strains. They just did an episode about an old, an old, was it Batman? An old Batman movie?
Batman.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
a
it
Batman
sounds
serial. Yeah.
truly terrible. So yeah.
It was horrifying, but
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, and not in the like, oh, that was a fun jump scare sort of horrifying. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, that does it for us. Again, we've been Roll for Topic, and I've been Chris Salzman.
I've been Andy Rao.
And remember, if your players are having fun, you're a great GM.